The sun peeked through the worn blinds of their small apartment, casting stripes across the faded carpet. David stretched, a tired groan escaping his lips. Another day, another battle against the alarm clock and the endless to-do list. He was a kind man, with warm eyes and a ready smile, but lately, that smile felt a little harder to find. Life as a single dad to his sweet son, Leo, was a constant juggling act, and some days, David felt more like he was dropping all the balls. Their home wasn't much, just 2 rooms filled with well-loved toys and hand-me-down furniture. Leo's drawings, taped crookedly to the fridge, were the brightest decorations. David always made sure Leo had enough to eat, even if it meant he sometimes went without. He packed Leo's lunchbox with colorful fruit and a little note, even on mornings when his own stomach rumbled with hunger. The sound of little feet pattering down the hallway brought a genuine smile to David's face. Leo, with his bright eyes and messy brown hair, was his whole world. "Morning, Daddy." Leo chirped, clutching a worn teddy bear. "Good morning, buddy," David replied, ruffling Leo's hair. He helped Leo get dressed, making sure his shoes were on the right feet, a small victory in their busy morning. Their old car, a sputtering beige sedan with a dented fender, waited patiently outside. It was more a member of the family than a car, having seen better days but always getting them where they needed to go, even if it took a little coaxing. David often worried about it breaking down, imagining the cost of repairs he simply couldn't afford. Every drive was a silent prayer that it would hold out just a little longer. As they drove to school, David thought about the bills piled on the kitchen counter, the rising cost of groceries, and the school trip Leo desperately wanted to go on. He worked hard, picking up extra shifts whenever he could, but it never seemed to be quite enough. The weight of responsibility rested heavily on his shoulders, making his kind eyes look a little more weary each day. Still, when Leo laughed from the back seat, pointing out a fluffy cloud shaped like a dinosaur, David felt a warmth spread through him. Leo's happiness was worth every struggle, every sacrifice. Even with the worries of bills and car troubles, David always made sure to cherish the small, happy moments with Leo. One of those moments happened nearly every afternoon. As David pulled their old sedan up to their apartment building after school, Leo would press his face against the window, eagerly looking out. "Look, Daddy. She's there." Leo would shout, his voice full of excitement. David would glance over, usually seeing a sleek, dark car parked a little distance down the street. It was much newer and shinier than any other car in their neighborhood, always sparkling clean. Sometimes, a person would be sitting inside, but David never paid much attention. He was usually too busy trying to find a parking spot or making sure Leo didn't leave his backpack behind. Leo, though, was fascinated. He was a curious and friendly boy, always ready to make a new friend, even if it was just a car. Every day, without fail, he would wave his small hand enthusiastically at the fancy car. Sometimes, he thought he saw a hand wave back, a quick flutter behind the dark windows, but he could never be sure. It was like a secret game just for him. "Who's that, buddy?" David asked one day, noticing Leo's daily ritual. "I don't know, Daddy," Leo replied, still waving. "She just sits there. I think she's waiting for someone important." Leo, with his innocent mind, had no idea just how important that woman really was. He didn't know she was a very powerful lady, a CEO who ran big companies and made big decisions. To Leo, she was just the lady in the fancy car, a friendly face he saw every day. David would just smile, thinking it was another one of Leo's imaginative games. He loved how his son found wonder in simple things. He had no clue that the woman in the car wasn't just passing by or waiting for someone else. He couldn't imagine that she was actually watching them, quietly observing their lives, day after day. Leo's waves were just a happy wave to a stranger, but for the woman in the car, they were a warm greeting that brightened her very busy and often lonely day. The sleek, dark car Leo waved to wasn't just any car, it was a mobile office for Clara, a powerful CEO. Inside, surrounded by screens and important papers, Clara often found herself watching the small, bustling scene unfold outside David and Leo's apartment building. For weeks, this had been her quiet routine. She had found their address after a long search, a search no one knew about. Clara was a woman who commanded respect, her days filled with big meetings and even bigger decisions. She had built her company from the ground up, a testament to her sharp mind and endless drive. Yet, despite her success, a quiet emptiness often lingered. Watching David and Leo, however, brought a strange warmth to her. She saw David's tired but loving eyes as he helped Leo out of their old car. She noticed how he always held Leo's hand, even when carrying groceries or talking on the phone. Clara watched him patiently explain things to Leo, bend down to tie his shoelaces, and listen intently to his stories about school. She saw the little things that showed a big heart. One afternoon, she witnessed David's old car sputter and refuse to start. David didn't get angry or shout. Instead, he simply sighed, put his arm around Leo, and started walking, telling a funny story that made Leo giggle despite the trouble. Clara saw the struggle, the worry lines on David's face, but also the unwavering kindness and love he had for his son. It was this kindness that truly impressed Clara. She knew what it was like to face tough times, though her struggles were very different from David's. She admired how he never let his difficulties dim his spirit or his love for Leo. He was a good father, a truly good man, and Clara found herself drawn to the simple, honest love that filled their small world. Each day, Leo's innocent wave was a bright spot in her busy schedule, a reminder of something precious she had long missed. She kept her distance, observing, learning, and holding on to a secret that was much bigger than just her job. One bright, sunny Saturday, David decided a trip to the park was just what Leo needed. The old swing set and the big slide were Leo's favorite things. David sat on a nearby bench, watching Leo play, a small sigh of contentment escaping him. He was tired, but seeing Leo so happy made it all worthwhile. Clara, too, found herself drawn to the park that day. She often took walks there on weekends, a rare escape from her demanding work. She was dressed simply, in jeans and a light jacket, blending in with the other park-goers. From a distance, she spotted David and Leo. A small smile touched her lips as she watched Leo chase pigeons with boundless energy. Suddenly, a bright red ball bounced away from Leo, rolling right towards Clara's feet. Leo, caught up in his game, didn't notice where it went until it stopped. He followed its path, his eyes wide with playful determination. He ran straight to the ball, and then, without a moment's hesitation, looked up at Clara. Clara bent down, picking up the ball with a gentle smile. She had seen Leo's innocent waves from her car, but this was the first time they were so close. His small face looked up at her, full of trust and a familiar spark of recognition. "Thank you, Mommy, for a day," Leo blurted out, taking the ball from her hands. He didn't think, he just spoke. He had seen her so many times, watching him, and in his young mind, she felt like a kind, grown-up friend who was always there. The words tumbled out, sweet and unexpected. Clara froze. The phrase hit her like a soft wave, warm and surprising. Her busy mind, usually sharp and focused, went completely blank. "Mommy, for a day." She looked at Leo's innocent face, then quickly glanced over at David, who was still on the bench, too far away to have heard. A mix of emotions swirled inside her. Surprise, yes, but also a strange, hopeful ache. She didn't correct him. Instead, she just smiled, a softer, more real smile than many of her colleagues had ever seen. "You're welcome, sweetie," she said softly, her voice a little shaky. Leo giggled, bounced his ball, and then happily ran back towards his dad, leaving Clara standing there, a powerful CEO, completely disarmed by a little boy's spontaneous words. After the park encounter, a new chapter began for Clara. Leo's innocent words had opened a door she hadn't known she was waiting for. She started finding reasons to be at the park when David and Leo were there, or to happen to be walking by their apartment just as they were leaving for school. She always dressed simply, making sure her fancy car was parked out of sight. Her interactions with Leo began with quick hellos and smiles, then grew into short chats about his day or his favorite superhero. Leo, remembering his "mommy for a day" comment, seemed to adopt her instantly. He would run to her with his latest drawing or a shiny rock he'd found. Clara, who usually spent her time discussing business strategies, found herself truly listening to stories about dinosaurs and space aliens. David noticed the kind woman who seemed to be a new friend for Leo. He didn't know her name, but he saw the gentle way she spoke to his son and the bright smile she brought to Leo's face. He was grateful for anyone who showed kindness to Leo. Sometimes, Clara would chat with David too, asking about Leo's school or sharing a laugh about a funny thing Leo had said. She carefully avoided talking about her job or anything that would give away her important life. She simply introduced herself as Clara, a woman who loved taking walks in the neighborhood. These small moments became precious to Clara. Away from the pressure of her company, she felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. The simple joy of watching Leo swing high on the playground or hearing David's warm laugh was a balm to her often stressed heart. She learned about Leo's favorite ice cream flavor, his fear of thunder, and his dream of having a pet dog. She saw David's tireless efforts, his quiet strength, and the deep love that shone in his eyes whenever he looked at Leo. Clara kept her secret close, a powerful CEO pretending to be an ordinary woman. She knew this quiet time wouldn't last forever, but for now, she cherished every minute. It was a chance to connect, to feel a part of something warm and real, something far removed from the cold world of boardrooms and balance sheets. Being with David and Leo filled a lonely space in her heart, making her feel more alive than she had in a very long time. David had always been a bit wary of strangers, but there was something different about Clara. He wasn't sure what it was, but she felt safe. He saw the genuine smile she gave Leo, the way she listened with her whole heart when Leo chattered about his day. Leo, who could sometimes be shy, blossomed around Clara. His laughter seemed brighter, his eyes sparkled more. Clara told me a funny story about a squirrel who tried to eat a whole pizza. Leo announced one evening, giggling as David tucked him into bed. "She's so nice, Daddy." David smiled, happy that Leo had found such a kind friend. He was thankful for Clara's presence. It was hard being a single parent, and sometimes he worried that Leo didn't have enough grown-ups in his life who could give him different kinds of attention. Clara filled that space beautifully. She wasn't trying to replace him, but simply adding more kindness to Leo's world. When David did get a chance to chat with Clara, he found himself surprisingly comfortable. She listened well, and her eyes held a warmth that made him feel seen, not just as Leo's dad, but as David. He found himself telling her about his day, about a tricky problem at work, or a funny thing Leo had done. He hadn't realized how much he missed having someone to talk to, someone who seemed to understand without him having to explain everything. There was a strange connection he felt with her, a gentle pull he couldn't quite put into words. It wasn't like a sudden crush, but more like a feeling of coming home. Her presence felt familiar, even though he had only known her for a short time. He would sometimes catch himself wondering about her life outside of their small park chats. Where did she live? What did she do when she wasn't walking in the neighborhood? But he never asked, respecting her privacy, and not wanting to push the friendly boundary they had found. He simply appreciated her kindness and the happiness she brought to his son, even if he didn't fully understand the quiet pull he felt toward her. Clara, with her sharp CEO mind, didn't just notice David's kindness, she also noticed his struggles. She saw the worn soles of his shoes, the way he sometimes paused before buying a small treat for Leo, and the worried frown that creased his brow when he thought no one was looking. Her powerful position gave her resources, and she knew she could help, but she had to do it secretly. One cold morning, Clara saw Leo shiver slightly in his thin jacket. The next day, David received a package at his door. Inside was a brand new, warm winter coat in Leo's size, with a little note that simply read, "From a friend who believes in kindness." David was puzzled but incredibly grateful. He thought maybe a kind neighbor had left it. Leo beamed, proud of his bright new coat. Then there was the car. David's old sedan had been making a terrible noise, and he'd been putting off the repair, knowing it would cost too much. One afternoon, after dropping Leo off at school, David found a note tucked under his windshield wiper. It was from a local repair shop, saying his car had been paid for and was ready to be picked up. The part was surprisingly simple. The note read, "And a kind stranger covered the cost for a family in need." David stared at the note, his heart swelling with a mix of confusion and deep thankfulness. Who would do such a thing? Clara felt a quiet satisfaction each time her secret acts of kindness made a difference. She used her network, discreetly arranging for things to happen without leaving any trace back to her. She even managed to send an anonymous grocery store gift card to David's apartment, just enough to ease the burden for a week or two. She watched David's reactions, the surprise, the relief, the quiet gratitude, and it was more rewarding than any big business deal. She wasn't just observing their kindness anymore, she was nurturing it, giving David a little breathing room. She saw how hard he worked, how much he loved his son, and she felt a powerful urge to protect that precious bond, even from a distance. These small acts were Clara's way of showing she cared, a silent promise that she was looking out for them, even if they had no idea who their guardian angel truly was. Despite the mysterious help with the coat and the car, David still carried a heavy worry in his heart. Leo's birthday was just around the corner, and it was becoming his biggest concern. He wanted to make it special, a day full of joy and fun for his son, but his wallet felt painfully thin. He knew Leo wasn't a demanding child. A simple cake and a few small gifts would make him happy. But David wanted more than just happy for his son. He wanted to throw a proper celebration, with Leo's friends, colorful balloons, and maybe even a trip to the local pizza place. He remembered the birthday parties other kids had, with bouncy castles and magicians, and a pang of sadness would hit him. He felt sad that he couldn't give his son those kinds of big, exciting memories. "What do you wish for your birthday, Leo?" David asked one night as they sat on the couch, looking through a worn picture book. Leo thought for a moment, his brow crinkling in concentration. A superhero cake. And maybe a new toy car, a red one, he finally said, his eyes shining. David hugged him tight, trying to hide the ache in his chest. A superhero cake and a red toy car seemed like simple wishes, but even those felt like a stretch. He imagined trying to bake a cake himself, knowing his baking skills were more likely to produce a lopsided mess. He pictured looking for a toy car at the dollar store, hoping to find something that wouldn't break in an hour. The thought of disappointing Leo, even a little, weighed on David's mind more than any bill or car repair. He spent evenings poring over flyers, looking for deals, trying to stretch every dollar. He hated feeling like he wasn't enough, that his love, however big, couldn't buy his son the kind of birthday he deserved. He just wanted to see Leo's face light up with pure, unburdened joy, a joy he felt he might not be able to provide this year. Clara had overheard David's quiet worries about Leo's birthday during one of their brief chats in the park. The sadness in his voice, the way he wished he could do more for his son, struck a deep chord within her. She knew this was her chance to do something truly special, something that would bring pure joy to both Leo and David. From that moment on, Clara's busy mind, usually focused on company mergers and market trends, shifted to party planning. This wasn't just any party, it was a mission. She wanted to give Leo the birthday he deserved, a day filled with everything he wished for and more. She wanted to make it a memory that would shine brightly for years to come. First, she found out Leo's exact birthday. Then, using her connections, she subtly reached out to Leo's school, pretending to be an old family friend. She got a list of his classmates and their parents' contact information, explaining she wanted to surprise Leo with a party. The parents, charmed by her enthusiasm, were happy to help keep the secret. Clara booked a colorful party room at a local family fun center, complete with a bouncy castle and an arcade. She ordered a superhero cake, exactly as Leo had wished, and bought a shiny red toy car, along with other fun gifts she knew he would love. She even arranged for a magician, remembering how Leo's eyes lit up when he saw one on TV. Her assistant, usually tasked with high-stakes corporate tasks, found himself coordinating balloons, party favors, and a guest list for a 5-year-old's birthday. He was puzzled but loyal, following Clara's detailed instructions without question. Clara spent hours picking out decorations, making sure every detail was perfect. She imagined Leo's face, wide with surprise and happiness, and a warmth spread through her. This wasn't about showing off her wealth, it was about giving a deserving little boy a day he would never forget, and easing the burden on a father who gave everything he had. She wanted to make it special, not just for Leo, but for David too, a quiet thank you for the kindness and love they had shown her, even without knowing it. The day of Leo's birthday arrived, and David had planned a small, quiet celebration at home, just a homemade cake and a few balloons. He tried to hide his disappointment, focusing on Leo's excitement. "Ready for your special day, buddy?" he asked, trying to sound cheerful. "Yes." "And Clara said she might stop by too," Leo announced, bouncing with energy. David smiled, a little surprised but pleased. He appreciated Clara making time for Leo. As they left their apartment, David expected to walk to the bus stop for a simple trip to the park. Instead, Clara's sleek dark car, the one Leo always waved to, was parked right outside their building. Clara herself stood beside it, a warm smile on her face. "Happy birthday, Leo," she said, opening the back door. "Surprise! We're going on an adventure." Leo's eyes widened with delight, and he quickly climbed in. David, confused, followed suit. Clara drove them not to the park, but to a brightly decorated building David had never seen before. Inside, the air buzzed with happy chatter and music. "Surprise!" a chorus of voices shouted as they walked in. Leo's classmates, their parents, colorful balloons, and a giant superhero cake filled the room. A magician, with a sparkling hat, waved a wand. Leo gasped, his jaw dropping in pure wonder. He ran straight for the bouncy castle, his laughter echoing through the room. David stood frozen, completely shocked. He looked around at the amazing celebration, then back at Clara, who was beaming at Leo. "Clara! How did you? What is all this?" he stammered, his mind racing. This was more than he could have ever dreamed of for Leo. The bouncy castle, the magician, all the children, it was a huge, expensive party. Clara just smiled, a hint of something more in her eyes than simple friendship. "Just a little something for Leo," she said, her voice soft. But David knew it was much more than a little something. He saw the careful planning, the perfect details, the sheer scale of the event. The kindness he had appreciated in Clara now seemed to hold a deeper mystery. Who was this woman, truly? How could she afford all this? And why would she do it for them? His gratitude was immense, but so was his confusion. A powerful new question began to form in David's mind: who exactly was Clara? The birthday party was a whirlwind of joy for Leo, but for David, it was a storm of questions. As he watched Clara effortlessly chat with parents and direct the magician, he knew she was far more than just a friend who liked walks. Her easy command, her confident smile, the way she managed everything, it screamed power and importance. He felt a mix of awe and unease. After the last guest had left, and Leo, tired but beaming, was fast asleep in Clara's car on the way home, David finally found his voice. "Clara," he began, his tone serious, "thank you for everything. But who are you, really?" Clara pulled the car over to a quiet spot near the park where they had first met. She turned off the engine, plunging them into a comfortable silence broken only by Leo's soft snores in the back. She took a deep breath. This was it. The moment she had prepared for, and yet, it still felt terrifying. David, she began, her voice calm but with a tremor of nerves, my name is Clara Vance. I am the CEO of Vance Industries. She saw David's eyes widen in disbelief. Vance Industries was a name he knew, a huge company. It was like hearing his neighbor was actually a king. I know that's a lot to take in, she continued, and I understand if you're confused. I haven't been honest about who I am, and for that, I apologize. But there's a very important reason why I've been watching you and Leo, and why I wanted to help. David was speechless. His mind reeled, connecting the fancy car, the effortless generosity, the quiet confidence. It all made sense now, yet it brought even more questions. Why him? Why Leo? Clara looked at him, her gaze earnest and full of a deep emotion David couldn't quite place. David, there's something else you need to know, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Something about Leo. Something that will change everything. The air in the car suddenly felt heavy, charged with a secret that had been waiting to be told for a very long time. The silence in the car stretched, thick with unspoken questions. David's heart pounded in his chest, a drumbeat of fear and confusion. Something about Leo, he finally managed to whisper, his voice barely audible. Clara turned to face him fully, her eyes glistening. David, she began, her voice soft but steady, Leo is my son. My biological son. The words hung in the air, shattering David's world into a million pieces. He stared at her, uncomprehending. His mind struggled to make sense of it. Leo? Her son. It felt impossible, a cruel joke. Clara saw the shock and pain in his eyes. She reached out, placing a hand gently on his arm. I know this is a lot, she said. But please, let me explain. When I was very young, just a teenager, I got pregnant. I was alone, scared, and had nothing. No family, no money, no way to care for a baby. Her voice trembled as she spoke, the memories clearly painful. I made the hardest decision of my life. I gave him up, hoping he would find a loving home, a chance I couldn't give him then. She paused, taking another shaky breath. It was an open adoption. I knew you, David, were his father. I knew you were a kind man who would love him. But I was told to stay away, to let you build your family. For years, I honored that. But I never stopped thinking about him. Never stopped loving him. Clara's eyes filled with tears. As I grew older, and built my company, I promised myself I would find him. I hired people, discreetly, to search. It took years, but they found you. They found Leo. And when I saw how you raised him, with so much love and so much kindness, even when things were tough, my heart just swelled. She looked at Leo, peacefully sleeping in the back seat, his superhero party hat still clutched in his hand. I've been watching him for weeks, David. Watching you. I saw how happy he was, how much you loved him. And I knew I had to be a part of his life, if only from a distance. But now I can't keep it a secret anymore. I want to be a mother to him, David. If you'll let me. David was speechless, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him, shock, betrayal, a deep, aching sadness, but also a strange sense of understanding. The connection he had felt, the familiarity, it was a mother's bond. David listened as Clara spoke, his world tilting on its axis. The shock was a cold wave, followed by a sharp ache in his chest. Heartbroken. That was the word. Heartbroken at the thought of losing Leo, or even sharing him in a way he hadn't imagined. Betrayal stung too, at the secrets she had kept. He looked at Clara's face, etched with raw emotion. Her tears were real, her voice thick with a pain that mirrored his own, but for a different reason. He saw the genuine love in her eyes as she gazed at Leo sleeping in the back seat. It wasn't the kind of love that wanted to take, but the kind that wanted to give. It was a mother's love, deep and undeniable. David closed his eyes for a moment, trying to process it all. He thought of all the times he'd struggled, wishing he had help, wishing Leo had a mother figure. He remembered the anonymous gifts, the car repair, the beautiful birthday party. These weren't acts of manipulation, they were acts of care, of a love that had been quietly watching over them. When he opened his eyes, he looked at Clara again, and the anger began to soften, making room for a different feeling. He remembered the feeling of familiarity he'd had with her, the strange connection. It wasn't a romantic pull, but a deep, unspoken understanding, perhaps of their shared link to Leo. You never stopped caring, David said, his voice rough with emotion. It wasn't a question, but a statement of realization. Clara nodded, tears streaming down her face. Never. Not for a single day. In that moment, David understood. This wasn't just a powerful CEO trying to take over. This was a mother, who had suffered her own loss, finally finding her way back to her child. It was a huge, frightening change, but he saw the truth in her eyes. His son, his beloved Leo, had another parent who cared deeply, a mother who had been searching for him for years. The thought was overwhelming, a tidal wave of emotion, but beneath it, a tiny seed of hope began to grow. Maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be the end of their small family, but the beginning of a bigger, stronger one. After the initial shock began to fade, David took a deep, shaky breath. He looked at Clara, then at his sleeping son. "What do you want to do now?" he asked, his voice calmer than he expected. Clara understood his question. She had thought about this moment for years, planning every detail, not just of the search, but of what would happen once she found them. "My plan," she began, "is simple, David. I want to be a mother to Leo. I want to be a part of his life, fully and openly." She continued, her gaze firm and sincere. "And I want to help you. I've seen how hard you work, how much you sacrifice for him. You've given him everything a father could, and more. I don't want to take that away. I want to add to it. I want to make both your lives easier, better, more secure." David listened, his mind racing. He thought of their small apartment, the old car, the constant struggle. "I own a beautiful home," Clara said, as if reading his thoughts, "with a big yard, a room just for Leo that could be filled with all his favorite things. There's a wonderful school nearby. I want to offer you both a place to live, a place where Leo can grow up without worrying about money, where you don't have to carry all the burdens alone." She wasn't just offering money, she was offering a future, a secure and bright one. "I can provide for all of Leo's needs, and yours too, David. No more worrying about bills, or car repairs, or birthday parties. You can focus on being the wonderful father you are, and I can finally be the mother I always wanted to be." Clara looked at him, her eyes pleading. "This isn't about taking Leo away from you. It's about giving him two parents who love him, two parents who can provide him with everything he needs to thrive. It's about creating a family, David. A new, stronger family, where we all work together for Leo's happiness." The offer was immense, almost unbelievable, a lifeline thrown into his struggling life. David spent a long, silent time thinking. Clara sat patiently, letting him weigh the incredible offer, the shocking truth, and the future that now lay before them. He thought about his years of struggle, the sacrifices, the constant worry. He thought about Leo, his bright smile, his innocent wishes. And he thought about Clara, her hidden kindness, her deep love for their son, a love that had never truly faded. It wasn't an easy decision. His heart felt a mix of fear and hope. Sharing Leo felt daunting, a big step into the unknown. But what Clara offered wasn't just money or a grand house, it was support, partnership, and a chance for Leo to have a mother he clearly already adored. He looked at his son, still sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of the life-changing conversation happening in the front seat. David knew his most important job was to give Leo the best life possible. Finally, David took another deep breath, his eyes meeting Clara's. He saw the hope and anxiety in her gaze. Clara, he said, his voice firm but gentle. I agree. I want what's best for Leo, and he deserves to have both of us in his life. A wave of relief washed over Clara's face, her eyes welling up with happy tears. Thank you, David, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Thank you. Over the next few weeks, David and Clara talked for hours, building a plan together. They decided to slowly introduce Clara as Clara, a very special friend who would be spending a lot more time with them. They would explain things to Leo when he was a little older, in a way he could understand. David and Leo moved into Clara's beautiful home, a place that felt like a dream. Leo's new room was big and bright, with a huge window that looked out onto a sprawling green yard. For the first time in years, David felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He still worked, but the crushing burden of making ends meet was gone. He had more time to play with Leo, more time to simply be a dad. They created a new, loving family, one built on an unusual beginning but bound by a shared, deep love for Leo. Clara became mommy for a day, that grew into forever, and David found not just a partner in parenting, but a true companion. Their journey was just beginning, but as Leo laughed in his new backyard, chasing butterflies with Clara and David watching close by, they all knew it was the best kind of beginning.